Welcome everybody, this is Steve Cady with Nexus for Change and the Good Cause Webinars. We're here with Dick and Emily Axelrod. Hi Dick and Emily.
Hi, how are you?
Great, and I'm really happy for your book. My students have loved reading the manuscript and being a part of some of the early stages of you all putting the book together. And I really appreciate and admire and just respect the fact that you all take so much time to not only put good content out there, but also connect your work to important causes in the world. And that's where the Good Cause Webinars come in, because we at Nexus for Change want to support people that are doing great collaborative work in the world. And that's the topic today. And at the same time, a lot of that collaborative work in the world is about addressing critical needs, causes and issues and challenges and possibilities. And so the Change Handbook is what inspired a lot of that work for me. I get the pleasure and honor of working with Peggy Holman and Tom Devane in creating that book, and it outlines the best practices from around the world for doing collaborative work. I'm at BGSU, and in the Change Handbook is the Axelrod's methodology. They've got a couple, the conference model, as well as the remind me, Emily?
Collaborative loops.
Collaborative loops, thank you, and the canoe. I want to call it the canoe. And
you can call it the canoe, Steve. It's fine.
Yeah. And so, again, thank you so much for being here. We've got Dick and Emily and John in the chat room, and they'll be taking us through two things. One, speaking about their book, and second, about the Dreamcatcher Foundation. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to change the screens over to you all. Get it to you, Emily. It's coming your way. And take her away for us.
All right.
Hold on.
We're getting it technically here, and while we're getting it here...
Are you seeing the...
Yep, we're seeing your screen right now.
Okay.
And it says think on the front.
Okay.
So you want to bring your slides up.
You want to play that?
Oh, okay. It's hold on.
The first one.
Yep.
There we go. We're getting there.
It's all good. It's all great.
While we're getting there, let me just say hello to everybody and thank you all for coming. Dick and I have been working on this book for about a year, and one of the things that we want you to know is why we wrote it. You can look at the picture on the cover that keeps popping in and out. There it goes. Is it up yet?
Yeah.
We wrote it because we've been working with folks in meetings for over the last 20 years and have come up with some ideas about it that we thought were worth sharing. Whether you know it or not, there are 11 million meetings that are going on over the year. And we've got a little picture to show you what a lot of people think about meetings and what we hope this book will do to those folks and for us. Technical difficulties here.
And Dick, what you can do is down on the bottom right-hand side, if you want to click.
He wants to show that video.
Yeah, if you click that, and then you down on the right-hand side, if what you can do is go down to the bottom, up on the right, and you see where it says 95% down at the bottom? Down at the bottom right, very bottom right.
Bottom
right.
Under your control panel.
Oh, I see it, yeah.
Now you go over to the left of 95%. Go over to the, see now it says 82. No, don't do that. Don't do that.
The other way?
No, don't do any of that. Just see to the left of that.
Yeah.
See right there? Go to the right one more. Click that.
Okay. You see it now?
It should be coming, hopefully. So you want to click on that presentation piece right there. Right there. Yeah. Well. No. No.
Okay, sorry.
It looks like a double presentation here.
Yeah, what you've done is
we're getting the contrast.
No, you've clicked on two things, so you want to
Let's just let it.
We'll let it go. You get the idea.
I think the idea is there. We don't have to mess with the technical part of it. Anyway, let me just say there are 11 million meetings going on in the country in organizations, according to Ann Cohen at Harvard Business School. And from their survey, 50% of them are unproductive. So if you think about that in terms of dollars, that's a lot of dollars. And if you think about that in terms of how humans feel about it, that's an enormous toll. I can speak from that personally myself because I remember one particular meeting I was in, a community meeting, and it was around schools, and it took 2 hours for the people to decide what color tray to put in the cafeteria, and by then I was out of there. It was just very, very frustrating. So I think there's a lot of frustration now around meetings, and I think people really want to have good meetings. One of the things that happened, we developed, which Dick will talk about a little bit later, kind of a flow called the meeting canoe, which our son tried when he was teaching skiing out in Breckenridge, Colorado. And the meeting canoe basically starts off with welcome, connection, and how are things right now, what's going on, current state, then moves to future state, decide and do, and attend to the end. And David started using this with his clients, and he found that his rate of people coming back to work with him went up tremendously. He became the most requested ski instructor at Breckenridge at the time. And so his friends who were teaching there wanted to know what he was doing, so he shared it with them. So it's just a very good way of thinking about meetings, thinking about how you connect with people.
And as we've been doing this work over the years, we'd be talking about meetings and presenting some of these ideas, and we got these sort of unexpected positive responses for clients. Remember one time I was having lunch with a client. We were doing a workshop there, and Chuck Mallew said to us, well, you know that meeting canoe framework, and we're going to share that in a little while, that meeting canoe framework that you've shown us, we've adopted that for all our meetings within with meetings that they call work sessions within the organization. And I was really shocked because we'd only spent maybe an hour on this topic in this sort of day workshop. So we began to get inklings that there was really power in the methodology and that it was easy to use, and the people adopted it right away. And then right before we started writing the book, I was talking with another person who I was coaching, and he was saying to me, you know, we do everything that the meeting books tell us to do in meetings, and our meetings are still awful, and so we don't understand what's going on. And I didn't say this out loud, but I said it to myself. I said, you know, I think we've got something to say about that. And so the book, Let's Stop Meeting Like This, is our notion of what can be said and what we can begin to think about when it comes to meetings. We didn't want to write another boring book about meetings, so one of the reasons it took us a while to get to this was we wanted to make it simple, we wanted to make it easy to use, we wanted to do it in a way that people could pick it up and use it immediately, so they could put the ideas into practice the very next hour. Yeah.
So Dick, a quick question. If you want to have your slides play, do you want your slides to play in presentation view?
Yeah.
So that right there, go to one more over, right there, and click on that.
Are they playing?
Not yet, you got to wait. Whatever you see is what we see.
Right, so the problem is I've got two monitors, and okay, now it looks like it's there. Okay, hold on.
You got to
click it up.
Okay.
Is it showing now?
No, because you got to switch over to the other monitor on your control panel. So I'm going to switch over to John if we need to. So John, are you able for me to switch over to you?
I'm not. I need a second if I need to do that.
Yep. Yep, let's do it, because I'd rather have...
Sorry about this, guys.
Let's have this look right too. So if you could pull it up, John, we'll just do that.
All right, while he's pulling it up, let me tell you about the Dreamcatcher Foundation, which we're partnering with. Dreamcatcher Foundation was founded by two women, Stephanie Daniels and Brenda Myers Powell. And these are women who are survivors of being trafficked. And what they wanted to do was to help other women get off of the street. When John finishes his technical stuff, he'll show you some statistics of what's happening. They have been working at this now for several years. Now, we found out about this because we went to a play that was done here in Chicago last spring, I guess it was. And it was a very powerful play which enacted and told the story, or several different stories, of young women from all walks of life who had been, basically a lot of them, kidnapped, picked up, all kinds of ways, and brainwashed into being trafficked, basically into slavery. It was a very uncomfortable play for me, and very powerful, because these people were people who had lived this particular life. Our congressperson was there. Each time that they did the play, they would have some famous Chicago person there to try to talk about this. And Jan is our congressperson, took this into the House of Representatives. So we're moving forward here, and we're going to show you a few statistics about this. Is basically in Chicago. Then we can talk a little bit about what's going on in the world. But we feel very strongly that this is a horrendous thing going on in our world that really needs attention paid to it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing about the play. As Emily said, it was a play we were glad we saw, but it was very uncomfortable, and there was an audience discussion afterwards. And what really stunned me was one of the people in the audience asked where they could go and volunteer. They asked for the address of the place where they could go and volunteer. And the people from Dreamcatcher said, we cannot give you the address, because if they wouldn't do it out loud. They said, come up and meet with us later, because if we publicly say the address, somehow they were worried that the pimps would find out, and then these women who were staying there would be in danger. And so, for each of us at different levels, it had some very kind of personal impacts. So, John, if you want to show those, are you ready to show the slides from her story?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay, would you show this, please?
Yeah, can everyone see him?
Yep.
Okay.
Should we go to the next one? And next.
Scroll through them, John.
So as you can see, one of the reasons that we're interested in helping support this charity is there's a great need. Here in Chicago, we have 9 beds, and we have 20 to 30,000 people out on the street in this city or the Chicago area. So what we're doing is donating some of our proceeds from the book to this charity. I think Stephanie and Brenda were going to join. I think they got their time mixed up between Eastern and Central, and perhaps we'll get them on the line before we leave. But
yeah. And the other thing we're offering is, we know some people may just want to directly donate to Dreamcatchers, and if you're an organization or an individual, and you donate $500 or more to Dreamcatchers, then we'll conduct a free webinar for your organization or a free meetings coaching session if you're an individual. So that's the offer we're trying to make in connection with this, to really help support them and help increase the number of beds and support the work of Dreamcatchers.
Yeah, they're trying to raise money to build a shelter to have a safe place for more people. All right.
Okay, John, could you advance it to the 4 big ideas slide? Okay, so in the book, there are really four big ideas. There's the notion that meetings are a snapshot of your organization's culture, that meetings are places where work can get done, they're the leverage points for organizational change, and that the whole meeting canoe framework. And so these are the 4 ideas. And I'm going to go back through them one at a time. So could you go to the next slide, please? So we kind of like this cartoon. Meetings are a snapshot of your organization's culture. And as you can see, if you walked into that meeting, you would get a very clear picture of what was going on in their desperation to have better meetings and not make them so boring. They decided that they would all show up in the nude, and that didn't even help. But our feeling is that when you walk into a meeting room, or if you observe a meeting room, that gives you a picture in a moment in time about what's going on in the meeting. The whisper or shout of the meeting tells you about the way people interact with each other. You learn about decision making, you learn about communication patterns, you learn about information flow. Even the setup, the physical layout of the meeting tells you something. I was thinking of one organization I worked with where you had every meeting room was set up in a T. Tables were in a T kind of structure, so you had people sitting around the lengthwise portion of the T, and at the horizontal portion there was an LCD, and then around the lengthwise portion of the T was another row of chairs where people were sitting, so that you immediately got the notion of some people could sit at the table, some people couldn't sit at the table, some people's voices counted more than others. So in the way that Ed Schein talks about cultural artifacts, we believe that meetings are cultural artifacts, and that if you could begin to shift the way we meet, then you can begin to shift the organization's culture. And the reason we like meetings as a way to shift cultures is that meetings are under your control. You don't need a big organizational change program to make it work. So that's our notion about meetings being a snapshot of your organizational culture. And let's go to the next slide.
We also think meetings are a place where things get done. In talking to our editor about this when we were talking about meetings, so we said to Steve, so what do you think of meetings? And he said, well, when I go to meetings, I think of 2 things. I think of what can I contribute and what do I need to get. So that's a really positive way, I think, to think of meetings. The other thing that we think about is that when you have meetings, there needs to be a little bit of challenge. We're taking the work design principles which are challenge, learning, autonomy, meaning, and feedback.
Yeah, and they're on the next slide. If you...
And they're moving. We'll move to the next slide to talk about them. And really think about these, looking at your meeting through this lens. So does your meeting have autonomy? So do I have the ability to influence others? Am I open to being influenced? Is it meaningful? If I'm an engineer working on something and I'm in this meeting with marketing and they're talking about selling another product, what am I supposed to do? How are the connections made? So is it meaningful? Do I need to be here? What can I contribute to this? Challenge. Is there a little stretch here, a little challenge for me? I kind of think about that. If we have this problem, you know, it's got to be enough to get my curiosity going and to think about, okay, how are we going to solve this one together? Learning. Am I going to learn something new today? When I walk out of here, will I have something new in my pocket that will add to this stuff in my brain? And feedback. Do I get feedback? So when people contribute, do you hear the comment, great idea. Well, if I can build on that idea, which is a really good one, etc., we get feedback. Feedback on the content as well as on what we are doing and saying. So looking for those things in your meeting helps make that meeting much more productive. And for me, I guess meaning would top a lot of those things, but all of those things are important.
Go to the next slide, please. So we see meetings as leverage points for change, and there's two ways we think about that. One is, if you think about any change process, there are just often hundreds of meetings. And in those meetings, people decide, are they going to sit on their hands, or are they going to get engaged in what needs to be done? So really, if you're in any kind of change process, you really need to be thinking about all these meetings as opportunities for engagement or disengagement. The second point is, excuse me, second point is that every meeting, you know, there's a ripple effect that occurs after every meeting. So the output of the meeting is, one, the decisions that are made, or the progress that gets made in the meeting, or lack of decisions or lack of progress, but also the affect. So if I leave a meeting with a sense of optimism and feeling good about what we accomplished, that becomes the input into the next meeting that I attend. If I walk out of there kind of feeling defeated, that it was a waste of my time, that I could have been doing other things rather than sitting in this boring, energy-sapping meeting, that ripple effect also goes into your next meeting. So we really want to think about the meeting as the kind of the smallest unit, but the small unit that has a big leverage around which you can begin to institute organizational changes. We have the next slide, please.
So the meeting canoe is what we've come up with as a flow of meetings that has been really useful for our clients. It's a metaphor. As you can see, we start with the welcome, and when we start with welcome, we mean a welcoming environment. A story about that is we were working in a hospital system up in Canada and going to have a work session, and the leaders decided that they would sit at the registration table and also would help people find their seat. So they tried to create a welcoming environment for all the participants that came in. Then we talk about connection, and connection to each other and to whatever the work or the task of that meeting is. And in this point, you know, another story is working with a group where they went around and did a video around the topic, which this was another hospital system, where it was what was happening to the patients, because basically they weren't able to connect. And so everybody, when they came in, had food, saw that video, and then what they did was connect to each other around that topic. In other words, you know, what did you think about that when you saw that? What's your ideas, etc.? all of that in the way to begin to connect to that topic. Then discover the way things are. What's the current state? And the key word here is to discover it, so that people really get a sense of doing it from their particular place where their hat is. The next piece is really elicit dreams. What's the future state? What do you want? What do we need to have happen here? This is basically right between discover and elicit the dreams is the place of greatest possibility, and we'll talk about that in a few moments. After and one of the things we've been getting is a lot of people, interestingly enough, when we talk about dreams, it throws folks off. So if you don't like elicit people's dreams, you can say, what do you need in the future? You know, you can put it into the culture of your system, whatever that happens to be. And then after you look at all of those possibilities, you need to decide, okay, which one are we going to go after? And how are we going to do that? And then attend to the end. So how do we need to end this meeting? So we need to be clear about what the decisions are, what are our next steps, and a little bit of feedback about the meeting. What did we do well? What could we do better next time?
So you can go to the next slide, please. So this is the top view of the meeting canoe, and I like this view of it because the shape represents a conversation that starts out small in the beginning as we welcome people and help people feel welcome and connect them to each other and to the task. And at its widest point, it's where you discover the way things are, which is your current state, and eliciting people's dreams, which is the future. And what we're doing there is creating structural tension. And Robert Fritz, in the book The Path of Least Resistance, talks about structural tension as sort of like a rubber band, that if you held vertically, the top part would be your dreams and the bottom part would be current reality. So if you create this tension, then you create energy in the rubber band that usually resolves in the direction of the dream or what you're trying to create in the world. If you only have the current reality, people have found they actually get depressed when they're just talking about problems. And if you only have the future, you get to be kind of Pollyannish. So creating this tension between current reality and future becomes really important. And what happens in our brains when this occurs is you begin to see possibilities that you never saw before. So for example, if you were about to purchase a new car, or when you've gone to purchase a new car, most people begin to see that car everywhere. In fact, if you know the make and model, you will see that make and model. So what's happening there is we have a clear understanding of our current state. We either hate our new car, or it's not working, or we're tired of it, or whatever. And we have a picture of what we're trying to create or bring forth in the world, which is a new car in our lives. And if we actually know the make and model, we will see the make and model more than before. And those things were always out there before we got this sort of clear in our own minds. So what happens is that possibilities start to emerge that you've never seen before. So this is the point. It's the widest part of the canoe. It's the point at which there's the most possibilities. Then as you begin to decide, the canoe begins to narrow. So at one level, you're narrowing the possibilities. You're eliminating certain options. On the other hand, you're increasing possibilities in terms of the direction you decide to go in. And then the last part is attending to the end. And we were working with an organization that was building a new building, and we had the architects and the customers and all that in the session. And I was talking with one of the architects during a break, ranting about meeting rooms in hotels and how awful they are for to do really good work. And what this architect said to me was how people enter a space and how they leave a space is as important as what happens in the space. And so that always kind of stayed with me. And I think that applies to the meeting too. It's how we enter the meeting, the beginning parts of the meeting, the ending parts of the meeting are as important as what happens in this sort of big fat middle that we have. And what in working with our clients, the beginning and the end are the pieces that are usually either ignored or lopped off. So those are the four big ideas. The notion of meetings as culture, the meetings as places where productive work can get done, as leverage points for change, and the meeting canoe. So I think we'd like to just pause here and entertain some questions or comments from folks who are on the call.
Great. And Dick, a few people have said a couple things. Going back a little bit, some people have said that they would love to get the stats about the trafficking, that they really felt that's really important. Lori, Lynn said, Lori sent you an email. Dear Dick and Emily, I'm aware of how trafficking goes on here in the USA. Many think it's just Asia, Russia, etc., but not so. And then, as that moved, the conversation moved to, yes, I always set up rooms for more open dialogue from Dr. Lynn. No T formations. Clients tease me about moving furniture, but it works. And Lynn says also, Dr. Lynn says also, very powerful point about emotional takeaways. And Roberta loves the meeting canoe, and she uses it with many of her groups. And so we don't have any questions, but just a lot of people reflecting on what you're saying.
Yeah, a couple of things. I mean, one of the things about trafficking that kind of floored me was, again, this is kind of Chicago-centric, but I think it happens other places, is how these people go into the parks, and it's a whole process. They make friends with these kids, they get their vulnerabilities, and then once they've got their trust, that's where they get them into situations where they capture them, drug them, and rape them, move them into the trafficking. And it also happens with people who have access to being online. They meet in chat rooms, they go out on what seems to be nice dates, and then all of a sudden they're in this sort of awful compromising position.
In terms of statistics, those slides that we provided, that John showed, are available, and you guys can send those out. Those are U.S.-centric. There are a few things about other countries. I'm a member of an organization that works with Russian women, and I can tell you that a lot of families who live in poverty sell their children because they're so desperate. And that's another thing that goes on, not particularly in this country, but if you look at other countries, India, Thailand, even in Russia. And the other thing that happens in Russia is that the young women get told they're going to get a job in Thailand or some of these other more exotic places, like they're going to go be a maid or take care of children, and what they're doing is basically getting wooed into a trafficking situation. And when they get there, they're slaves. They can't get home. They don't have money. They can't get out of it. There are a lot of ways to learn about this, and I'm sorry Stephanie is not here to talk more about this, but
we have Zarana Patel, who's one of the board members from the Dreamcatcher, and she's offered to speak a bit if we want to unmute her.
Oh, great.
That would be wonderful.
Hi, Zarana.
Hi, everyone. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I apologize. I'm actually doing this on a phone. So, yes, thank you very much, Dick and Emily, for your sort of awareness as you were present at the play, and didn't only just think deeply about what you'd heard and felt, but also felt that you wanted to do something about it. So thank you so much for donating the proceeds, or some of the proceeds of this session. So yes, Dreamcatchers has been in place, a small drop in a very, very large ocean. But what is just utterly remarkable is this. I was having a kind of heated Twitter conversation with someone halfway across the world who said, "Oh, your organization, that's just small. The problem is so big. What can you possibly do?" And I stopped for a second because the reality of that question is, it's a deep one. But I stopped for a second and I considered the girls that I have met through the Dreamcatcher Foundation. Even just one human story turned around because the Dreamcatchers Foundation exists, because Stephanie and Brenda do the work that they do and build the relationships that they build, matters so much. I spent time with a young girl, one of our girls named Diamond, whose story is incredibly hard to talk about. She was molested from when she was a very young girl, and sold by her mother into prostitution. She and her sister, when they were preteens, they were very young, and the details of that story will stop your heart. But here's the beauty of this organization and of everyone who does the work and contributes in any way is that story doesn't stop there. Right now, you have Diamond saying, I understand why that life is not for me. I understand why I have the emotional issues I have, or I'm trying to understand, and I understand that I am bigger and I am better than those things. That doesn't have to define me. And the reason that I think all of us who do this work, and we're not desensitized, we cry. The reason we do this work is because we understand that change is possible, and that is amazing. And to be around that and to see that through the Dreamcatcher organization and through some of the other beautiful organizations that exist has been amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll add a few things from the chat room. There's a nice conversation, or a very compelling conversation happening. A few things. One, Lori Sortino, she wants to know how to get more information. People want to get more information. They're hoping that you'll provide that at some point so people know how to get connected, that get involved.
We have some contact information, and
on the slide at the end.
It's about near the ending slides. And Sarana, maybe do you have a contact as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure of the best way to give it, but if we can mail you, and then you can put that out to your attendees. Any information, absolutely, we'll do that. Is it all right for me to speak a little bit about specific work that we do?
Sure.
Yeah. So, Dreamcatchers has sort of 3 core efforts, so to speak, and one of them has to do with stopping the entry before it starts, and that means this. There's so many forces playing at that allow exploitation to exist. Damaged neighborhoods, dysfunctional families, and the lack of economic opportunity. Role models in the neighborhood that are horrendous. You name it. The threats are to be older, and there are a lot of them. And so,
Luana, if you could get your microphone positioned around your mouth, I'm not sure, but just make sure.
Yeah, is it better?
No.
Okay.
There
you go, right there.
Okay, perfect. Good. Okay. So one of our priorities is to try to help prevent the entry into prostitution to begin with, and that effort basically it's all of this comes down to relationship building. All of it. We very firmly believe that programs and assessment and quantitative data and all this stuff is all fine, but it doesn't really allow for transformation, transform people, or allow the possibility for transformation. And so,
bring your microphone up, Zorana, again. Move it around because you're.
Okay. Our prevention program focuses on neighborhoods and areas in which there are a lot of just a lot more vulnerability. And so Brenda is in the Chicago system using workshops to allow girls to have a place to come and be honest about all the craziness that's going on in their lives when they're preteens, right? They've got real natural sexuality unfolding in the midst of what are possibly exploitative patterns, as well as all the other stuff that just happens when you're a teen. And so those relationships are amazing. The programs are beautiful, and I can speak. I can speak to the
Bring your
success.
phone back up again, Zorana. I'm sorry. It's your microphone.
Working better, yeah. So a young girl who's been with Brenda and Stephanie and Dreamcatchers through the prevention program since he was in 7th grade is now graduating high school, and she got straight A's last semester, and she is going on to college. So it's just a beautiful illustration of the fact that building these relationships and having workshops and allowing honesty to happen around the vulnerabilities that lead to exploitation actually work. So our workshops are one component. The other component is outreach. So we have a big old Dreamcatchers van that has a, it doesn't hide. It's white and it has a big yellow logo. And Stephanie and Brenda go out on the streets to disseminate, to distribute condoms, to distribute water, to distribute, more than anything, they're present to say, we are here. You are not alone. You may not want to talk to us today. You may be afraid. You may be hesitant. You may, think it's not relevant to you. We are here. We are present. Just know that. And through that,
Muted.
Get built eventually. And you never know when they get that call at night or any other time saying, hey, I need to talk to you. And, you spoke a little bit about the exploitative way, Dick, that kind of get into their girls' heads. Well, there's also a pattern in the way that relationships are built so that a young girl can kind of use that support system to get out. And it begins actually with just a lot of testing. These girls have been hurt and damaged and not able to trust. And so there's a lot of testing, like, yeah, right, you're going to be there when I call. Yeah, right, you're going to meet up. Yeah, right, you're going to set up this appointment for me and come with me. Yeah, right. It's a constant testing. And this organization withstands that test through time. So we've helped a lot of young girls get off the streets. What is next is that, Dick, you mentioned that people were asking about, where they can volunteer. And I thought you were going to say, well, there's no physical space yet, because there isn't a physical space. That the Dreamcatchers Foundation is, our next step is to build a crisis center, and we are fundraising for that. So any support or connections that you have along those lines, any of your audience, that would be amazing. But we don't have a physical center. So right now, so much of our budget goes towards finding girls a safe space and paying for hotel rooms and for rent and that sort of thing, which is a little, that's unfortunate. Emily, you cited the stat of, there's 20, 30,000 at least that number of people suffering, and there are only 9 beds. That's absurd. So we'd like to change that.
Great.
Unmute.
Yeah, so this
Okay,
is
Steve, is there any?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I would just add one other point related to this and then share with you a couple points that were also mentioned related to what you were asking about. But Dr. Lynn says she remembers Mark Victor Hansen from Chicken Soup for the Soul, says that the first thing women do with their microloans is buy back their children. And he said we all wept when she heard that. And there's a little bit more conversation going on about how to keep their children safe using tracking devices on phones so you know where your kids are. There's a variety of conversations about that going on in the chat room right now.
Okay, it's kind of hard to go back to meetings after that conversation, but could you advance the next slide, please?
And, I would say just as a transition that in the work that I've learned, it is the power of a good conversation that can help people find solutions in ways that we haven't found them before. And that's what you're offering.
Mm-hmm.
Good transition, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that really is what it's about. That's why we're doing this. I mean,
That's right. It is. It's about that, and it's about building relationships too.
Yeah, and it's what happens when we meet. You know,
yes.
What happens when we come together, whether it's a two-person conversation, or whether it's 10 people, or whether it's 100 people. So, what we wanted to say about meeting basics is, you know, as excited as we are and believe in some of the things that we talked about earlier in the webinar, you still have to do your basics. You still have to say, is the meeting necessary? And do we have a clear person? Do you have the right purpose? And do we have a clear purpose? And do we have the right people in the room? And the thing that we like to do is involve the meeting participants in the design of their meeting. One of the frustrations that many leaders have is they say, well, I asked people for agenda items and they had no input. They never get any input. And that's because it's still seen as the leaders' meetings. So if you could really, once you begin to take control over your meeting experience and have input into the design, then you're able, you own it, it's yours. And so we think that's important. And then, you know, where we meet and how long are also really important things.
Yeah, I want to say something about ownership. One of the things we did was a little survey and found out that we asked people, well, whose meeting is this? And everybody basically said it's a leaders' meeting. As long as everybody sees it as a leaders' meeting, they have no ownership. So that was one of the reasons that we particularly think that we need to involve people, because if I don't have ownership of the meeting, I'm less likely to take action out of that meeting when I go in. And I feel real strongly about that. So we have to find different ways to have people understand that this is their meeting. They will get things out of that meeting. They can contribute to that meeting, and that they too are owners of that particular meeting. So I think that's really important. And the other thing I'd really like to stress is purpose. And I think so many times we, even in small meetings particularly, we have our habitual meetings. So we know at Monday morning the staff is going to meet and do X, Y, and Z. And the purpose of that is not always clear. One of my teachers, Kathy Dannemiller, used to talk about purpose and North Star, and we need to really make sure that people understand purpose. Why are we coming together, and how are we all connected to that purpose? And if we do that, we also get more ownership if we understand our connection to that purpose.
Okay. John, could you advance to the information slide, please? Okay. There's I guess a LinkedIn, here's, if we want to continue the discussion, there's a LinkedIn discussion, Nexus LinkedIn discussion. You can contact us directly. Here's the contact information for Stephanie and Brenda at the Dreamcatchers Foundation. So these are just different ways that you can contact any of us.
And continue the discussion.
And next slide, please. And here's what you can do right now. One, if anything we've talked about today has moved you, you can donate directly to the Dreamcatchers Foundation. You can buy a book on Amazon, and we're donating a portion of our royalties to Dreamcatcher to help them build this crisis center. Or you can buy a book and donate $500 to Dreamcatcher, and you'll get a webinar for your organization.
Which you can help craft.
Right, and if you're a single practitioner, we will do an hour's worth of coaching with you. So those are just things that, things you can do right now that are under all of our control. So those are the big things that we'd like to leave you with. And John, last slide. So we can all just head for the meeting canoe, and whether it's 2 persons, 10 people, or 200. And what we'd like to do is do our own attending to the end. So if you could type in the chat box your own thoughts and feelings about your experience here today, we'd appreciate it. So thanks for presenting, thanks for attending, and all the good information and comments.
Thank you, Dick and Emily, and thanks to everybody out there in the chat room. Would love to hear or read your thoughts, your closing remarks, your takeaway, whatever it might be from today's conversation that sticks with you. And a couple people have said that one thing, Dick and Emily, I know you know this, I'm sure, that Dr. Lynn worked with Warren Bennis, and she just wanted to put his name out there and say that that a real great has passed away.
Yeah.
Yes, it's one of the founders of our field has passed away.
And Dr. Lynn's an old friend, so hi there.
And as we check out, what are some other things? Jessica says she really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for the valuable information. And Jessica, I'm curious as to what's one piece of information you might have taken away, or what's something that you found useful or valuable for you. Lisa said that we do this work because we believe change is possible. Dream catchers. And Dr. Lynn says, you're so right, Emily, about greater purpose, very powerful galvanizer. And Lori says, what if an organization would hire someone to manage a program to make a difference in the community and be responsible for teaching and coaching within the organization? For example, teaching the employees the principles like Dick and Emily's book. And Jessica says, I really like the meeting canoe. It seems like it would help keep the meeting organized and keep it going. And Lori says, my heart is so moved. Thank you, Dick and Emily, again for your modeling.
And thank everybody for their comments. And that's what keeps us going. Absolutely.
And so thank you. And John, you have a takeaway and a closing comment you'd like to say as we say goodbye?
No, just thanks, Dick and Emily, and all of our attendees for being here. Also, thank you to Zorana for coming in and sharing your story and talking more about the Dreamcatcher Foundation. The next step slides that you see up there, we will have a LinkedIn discussion group on the Nexus page. And as far as the recording materials, that's going to be sent out from GoToWebinar with a link, and it will have the chat room notes, link to the recording, and some of the slides from today's presentation with all the active links to Dick and Emily's sites, the book site, and to Nexus for Change. So thanks, everyone.
Yep, and the follow-up, you'll get a follow-up email that will have a link to that material as well as an invitation to discuss your reflections on LinkedIn. And I'd close with Nexus for Change. In the work we've done, we've found that there's these layers, and it is helping to take the tools and the principles like showed today, connected to people, leaders and activists and educators and students and practitioners, helping them connect to great causes, great challenges, and great issues in the world, and great possibilities. And so the only way the tools in the book can get to those great causes at the top, get to those great issues, those great challenges, is through people, leaders, activists, students, instructors, practitioners, those people out there that care about addressing those issues with concrete, good evidence-based tools like you all shared today. So thank you for your work. And as Roberta said, she said, thank you for sharing about Dreamcatcher, and we'll recommend the book to friends and clients. And Len says, thanks for doing all your work in both arenas. So again, thank you, and goodbye, everybody, for now. We'll see you next time.
Have a great day.
Bye now.